home because their parents cannot be able to afford school fees. I'm very sure most of us, the members of parliament, cannot even sleep in our homes because parents are looking for us from left, right, center, so that we can be able to give them money. And again, you know very well that we don't have that kind of money to fund, to give school fees. CDF has been used to construct chief's offices and police stations, which is very important for security of our people. Madam Speaker, these funds, when they are being used to construct schools, we use local people to construct. We use local business people to do their works. Therefore, when they are doing this work, CDF is supporting the local economy because these people have something to do, they are employing people, and people are getting incomes. When it comes to GAF, but before I go to the GAF, we need to increase CDF because I assume if I get double what I was getting, we are going to do a lot more than we have been doing. GAF, understand GAF, the women representatives, they are given only 7 million per constituency, which to me is too little. So even this fund needs to be increased so that at least the impact of the fund can be able to be seen. Senate Oversight Fund. This is an issue which has been long discussed. And, you know, at times, this parliament, we are also enemy of ourselves. I remember this proposal came to this parliament, and it was ignored. The work of the Senate, the senators to oversight the counties is very important. If you look at the misuse of funds by the counties, is too high. In fact, there are some counties which have got so many billions, but they cannot even show anything which has been done with the funds. So we need to give the counties, the Senate, the oversight funds so that they can be able to do their monitoring and evaluation of what is happening in the counties. Madam Speaker, I have a small problem with the economic stimulus, but I don't have a problem with empowerment fund. Because empowerment fund is going to cater for women empowerment, men empowerment, youth empowerment, and also persons living with disability. But the definition of economic stimulus does not fit into this. Because economic economic stimulus is an action by the government to encourage private sector economic activity by engaging in targeted expansionary monetary and fiscal policy. And this action is taken during recession. Recession is when the economy is not working, to help jumpstart the economy and enhance growth, economic growth and create jobs. And Madam Speaker, the first stimulus program was done in 2009-2010, is when we had the first economic program. And that one was very successful because the economy grew by 8%, which was the largest growth in the history of Kenya. 22 billion shillings were used to construct schools, horticultural markets, juakali sheds, public health centers, and also fish ponds. For the first time, we had fish ponds in Central Province. And Boni Kenya people, that's the first time they started eating fish. For the first time, we were sufficient in fish production. So that one was very, very important and very, very useful to this country. The second one was done in 2020-2021, and 53 billion shillings were used. I'm not very sure the impact of that money, because this one was supposed to cushion Kenyans during from the COVID effect. But I'm not very sure if that fund was really used properly and what was the impact. So my proposal is that to the drafters, that they remove the word economic stimulus from the empowerment. So we remain with the empowerment fund, because economic stimulus is something different than what we are looking at. On the issue of empowerment program, I think also we need to have a structure on how we are going to disperse that money. Otherwise, you can have money, and this money will not be able to help the people who are targeted. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support.
Thank you, Member for Kitui Rural. Now we'll have the member for Embakasi Central, Honorable Benjamin Gadhiru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me say from the onset that I like to support this bill by Honorable Mure and Honorable Gishimo. But before then, let me take this chance to thank God and the people of Embakasi Central constituency and Kenyans at large for giving me this chance to serve in the 13th Parliament, being my second term as a member of Parliament. I also want to congratulate the people of Kenya for the way they voted, remained calm, and agreed that the government that was elected and let it work without those things that demonstration that we used to say to see. So I thank every Kenyan who participated in this election. On the issue of the NGCDF, Madam Speaker, myself as a member of Parliament who was present in the 12th Parliament, and also who was a member of the NGCDF Committee of the National Assembly, I think this motion is timely, because we had been having that problem of the NGCDF being anchored in the Constitution. And I want to say that the NGCDF, the GAF, this money has been helping very many Kenyans. As we speak, very many students are at home, university students and secondary school students. They are at home for lack of school fees, because most of them have been relying on bursaries that we usually issue, both the members of Parliament and the county MPs. So, Madam Speaker, I support this. The NGCDF has been helping very many needy cases, like actually in Nairobi. We have shortage of classrooms. Using the NGCDF money, we have been able to build very many classrooms that are helping us reduce the number and the ratio of student to the teacher. That is supposed to be 1:40, where Nairobi we have a ratio of 1:100. So, Madam Speaker, I urge the House, and when the bill goes to the public participation, I urge the people that they should support these amendments. Madam Speaker, in the NGCDF Act, there is 2.5%, I think 2.5 or 2%, that is supposed to be used for environment. And this money will also go a long way in helping each and every constituency in taking care of their environment, e.g. planting trees and cleaning of rivers. If you see that, we are talking about climatic change as of now. But the big problem is that trees have been, we haven't planted as many trees, and we're using the NGCDF money. Many members will be able to add on this number of number of trees. Madam Speaker, if you visit very many constituencies, when you are visiting the constituencies, the money that you see or the development that you see, they are actually 90%. In every constituency, you will see a development project that has been done using the CDF. So, Madam Speaker, I support that this one, the bill by Honorable Gishimo and Honorable Muri, we should all support. And finally, Madam Speaker, I would like to urge members that we should concentrate on if it's about changing the Constitution or anchoring anything in the Constitution, we should so much concentrate on issues that are Wajiko driven, not these issues of term limits and other things. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The next chance will go to Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, Kwanza constituency. Is he in the house? Honorable John Badi, is he in the house? The next chance will go to the member for Mukurweini, John Kagusha. The microphone for Honorable Kagusha.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I would like to support the motion on the floor of the House. And this particular bill, which has to do with the CDF, anchoring the CDF into the Constitution, is something that I think, as a member, is going to be of much benefit to us as a country. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that as Kenya Kwanza government, this must be our preoccupation, whereby we are going to be concentrating on bills that are going to be of benefit to the common mwananchi. And CDF bill is such a bill that is going to help our people to improve their lives as it has done before. Madam Speaker, I have been a chairman of CDF for a long time. And when I was chair of CDF, I got to know that a lot of people in this country actually depend on the finances and the funding that comes from this kitty. You'll understand that a lot of our children are going to school and are going to, get education through the CDF funds that they get through the CDF bursary. Madam Speaker, if we were to have this fund withdrawn, I'm not very sure that there is any other way that we are able to reach to the grassroots, which have so far been reached by the CDF kitty. I do not imagine that the county governments will be able to handle, and of course you know this is not in their mandate. I'm not very sure that the DCCs and the provincial administration is able in any way to bring together the children who are needy in the villages, as has been done by the CDF in the past. Honorable Speaker, I know for sure that the CDF kitty has helped very many children, especially who have been admitted to national schools, to provincial schools, and of course has also sustained the day schools over the time. And so, any member who is in their right frame of mind must and will find this CDF kitty very, very important to be enacted in law. Honorable Speaker, as we are speaking, the CDF kitty, again, has a component that deals with the environment. You understand that 2.5% of the CDF kitty actually deals with the environment. And these amounts of money that go to environment through the CDF kitty have helped a lot to increase the forest cover, to increase the fruit trees in our villages, in schools, in public institutions. And so It means that once we put this into constitution again, we are going to improve our ability and capacity to increase our forest cover. All of us are aware that as we are going on here, we have the COP27 conference that is now going on in Egypt. And it is focusing so much on the issue of improving our environment through increasing our forest cover, planting trees, and of course, looking at reducing emissions across the world and the globe. And so, CDF focuses on this particular component, which is so important to us. Honorable Speaker, CDF again focuses on the component on sports. We know a lot of our young people depend on the leagues that are organized through the CDF kitty. And so, enacting the CDF kitty into the constitution means that we are going to be taking care of these young people who require this attention, who require this support from their members of parliament and of course from their government, so that they are able to participate in athletics activities, football activities, and all the other sporting activities. And we know very well that in fact athletics has become a livelihood for a number of our citizens in this country when they have triumphed internationally. Madam Speaker, what I think we actually need to be looking at again is in fact increasing and enlarging the mandate which the CDF kitty can be able to address. When I served as a chairman of the CDF was before the devolution came about, and so at that particular time, CDF was focusing on a broad spectrum of mandate. But today, CDF has been reduced to mainly a few of the social intervention areas and security and education. I dare say CDF need to address issues of small irrigation schemes in the villages, where we have people who want to do hydrants, we have people who need small dams and pipes to help them pump water or get water into their farms. CDF should be able to help in that. And I do not see in any way any overlapping roles here between the CDF and the county government funds, especially when it comes to the issue of small irrigation projects, whereas we depend on the National Irrigation Board and the county governments to probably have bigger irrigation projects. I know for sure if I had the CDF to be able to do this, irrigation schemes, some of them that are in Mukurweini, would actually be comfortably be handled in this. I am reminded of the micro irrigation scheme, which was actually started by CDF kitty, and later on it was taken up by other donor funding, and now it has become a huge irrigation scheme. I'm reminded again of the Sagana irrigation scheme, Iganjo irrigation scheme. Also we have Igoda in Gekondi irrigation scheme. And I mean, we can be able to start even very many other irrigation schemes that we can be able to support, Madam Speaker. And I want to once again also echo some of the sentiments that have been echoed by our members and also our political party. That as members of parliament, we must be preoccupied much more with the issues that are going to be dealing with the Wanjiko. And I know the Honorable Benjamin has also raised that issue. Our members and our party must be preoccupied much more on the issues of enacting CDF into law, into the constitution, and we must desist from diversionary tactics by some of the members to talk about issues of term limits, which are not necessary, which are not important, and which cannot help our country to move forward. So as an assembly, as a country, as Kenya Kwanza government, we must be focused much more on the issues that are going to be helping Wanjiko. And I want to say, and I want to ask our citizens not to pay attention to those diversionary voices that have been heard, especially today, about issues of term limits. And I want to say that we as members of National Assembly will be very clear on our mandate. We are very clear, as the President has put it, that ours is to ensure our people are uplifted from poverty, are lifted from the bottom and taken to a higher position where they are able to fend for themselves. Ours is to ensure that we have money into Kenyans' pockets so that they are able to run their day-to-day lives without much struggle. Madam Speaker, I want to put it at that so that I can be able to leave a few more minutes to other members. But Madam Speaker, I must say that as an assembly, as a National Assembly, we must remain focused on the main agenda, which is to uplift our people's lives through these kind of bills that are of importance to our nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The next chance will go to the Honorable Member for Kilome, 3rd Years, Zambia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. And let me first thank my people from Kilome constituency for electing me the second time to serve them. Madam Speaker, I rise to comment on the proposed legislative proposal to amend the Constitution so that it captures the National Government Constituencies Development Fund, the National Affirmative Action Fund, the Senate Oversight Fund, and the Economic Stimulus Empowerment Fund. Madam Speaker, let me first thank the two colleagues, Honorable Ngishimu and Mule, for their effort to co-sponsor the proposal as one of key and critical business for this 13th Parliament. Earlier on, there have been lots of confusion about the existence of the NGCDF. Madam Speaker, after the courts pronounced themselves on the same regarding the constitutionality of this CDF Act, Madam Speaker, CDF fund was brought up sometimes in 2003. After the Kibaki government came into power, an idea which was borrowed from India and Ghana, one of the cardinal values in transparency and accountability, which equates the whole exercise to public scrutiny from different facets of government, both public and private. The main purpose for this fund is to address socio-economic development of the people at the constituency level, as it is designed to reduce poverty and enhance regional equity. Madam Speaker, historically, Kenya has been labeled as a nation with immense levels of unjust opportunities amongst its people and the communities, as it was consumed since independence. Madam Speaker, the fund over the years tried to elevate communities which have rather been left behind by the infrastructural developments and projects, contribution in education in terms of school fees payment to the needy students. And Madam Speaker, as I stand here, I have sponsored over 300 students in my constituency from since I was elected in 2017. Out of the 300 students which are fully sponsored with the full scholarship, around 200 have now finished Form 4. They are joining colleges, universities with grade A and better grades. And this has been facilitated by the funds through the CDF. Madam Speaker, we have built so many schools in my constituency, both primary and secondary schools. There are so many dilapidated classes, especially in primary schools. We've modernized them. So anybody who is in denial about the CDF fund, I think is an enemy of the people in this republic. Madam Speaker, the inclusion of NGCDF fund under the National Affirmative Action Fund, the Senate Oversight Fund, and the Economic Stimulus and Empowerment Fund shall ensure such funds are ring-fenced and permanently entrenched in the Constitution to avoid incidental threats from developing legislations and court decisions, which for years have sought to invalidate the existence of these funds. This is the highest time the 13th Parliament is supposed to be firm on this exercise. Madam Speaker, the introduction of the Senate Oversight Fund shall strengthen the operations of the devolved function in a manner that is strictly done in compliance with the law to reduce privileges. The fund shall enable the upper house to ensure that the counties shall perform their function without the earlier experience and precedented delays, so that the citizens can benefit in time. Madam Speaker, if you go around in all the constituencies, you will realize that the only fiscal and development infrastructure are from the NGCDF. Counties have been getting billions of monies, but when you compare with whatever little we get from NGCDF, the development is immeasurable. Madam Speaker, despite trying to entrench these funds to the current constitution, there is need to raise these funds from the current 2.5% to at least 5%. Madam Speaker, I can confirm that if these funds truly are increased from the current percentage, you'll find that all the counties will just come to benchmark in the constituencies. Madam Speaker, I challenge the counties to make sure that they reduce their wages and at the same time increase the number of projects they can manage, Madam Speaker. Let me say that, Madam Speaker, if you compare the number of staff in the constituency level, most of the constituencies have less than 10 staffs, and they execute and they manage and they protect this fund so that we can see whatever is being done to the people goes down to the constituency level. Importantly, in addition, Mr. Speaker, the economic stimulus fund shall be key as it shall align with the current Kenya, with the current government, so that we can access, the people down there, whatever we call Wanjiku, can access the funds. Though we need to review the funds because it will be like a duplication of the WESO fund, Madam Speaker. We need to check into that so that we don't duplicate the funds. Madam Speaker, inclusion of such funds in the Constitution, and more so, the NGCDF shall ensure all running and ongoing projects shall be concluded to the benefit of respective constituents, and also shall not have ghost projects in the expense of taxpayers' money and at the inconvenience of the actual recipient of such projects. Madam Speaker, there are some constituencies which have major projects costing over 20 million. There has been provision of several phases. You can do phase 1 like for 5 million, phase 2 another 5 million. And Madam Speaker, you find that if these funds are not, if the funds do not trickle down to the constituencies, these projects might be quite relevant. Madam Speaker, NGCDF remains to be one of the closely monitored funds, and its utilization has met the expectation of the citizens. Reports from the Office of the Auditor General has also attested that there has been minimal cases of mismanagement due to its utilization criteria and the mandatory approvals before, during, and after undertaking the projects. Madam Speaker, as we speak now, at the constituency level, some students are still at home. Why? Because the parents that are very needy, we have, very needy students whose parents cannot afford to pay for them their school fees. We have orphans who are needy and bright. So, Madam Speaker, nobody should make a mistake of ignoring these funds, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is prudent to note that the fund has trickled down on the very last residents of the respective constituencies, since the choice of projects is done on need basis after detailed assignment by the NGCDF committees. Madam Speaker, we do a lot of public participation so that the residents in every constituency are satisfied with the projects which they really in need of. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I would urge members of this House to move with speed and try to entrench this fund so that no busybodies can just wake up in the morning and rush to the courts to deny the Kenyan citizen their rights for development and benefit from this fund. Honorable Speaker, I raise my case and I conclude by saying, members, let us be alert on this fund and all will be well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The next chance will go to the member for Teso South, Honorable Mary Emase.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important legislative proposal to anchor CDF, NGCDF funds into the Constitution. Madam Speaker, CDF and its achievement over time across the country cannot be gainsaid. Madam Speaker, there are families in this country, vulnerable, very bright children, needy, that today have a story to tell. They have testimonies of how bursaries through CDF have transformed lives, have changed and transformed society. The impact of these bursaries alone to these needy students is something that as members we are very proud of. So I support this legislative proposal, and besides the bursaries, in fact, I dare say that CDF is an equalizer on matters development. There are far-flung areas in this country, remote areas, that would never have seen decent establishments, schools in their regions if it were not because of CDF. You go across our counties, our constituencies, some of the best infrastructures are done by CDF, ranging from laboratories, dining halls, even the buses in schools. There are certain schools where kids are taught about, say for example, geography, about the lake, about the ocean, but they can't visualize, they have never been there. But because we've been able to buy buses and supply to these schools, they're able to go on those trips to go and get that exposure. And there are schools where, before CDF, they would do physics and chemistry through theory. They were not able to undertake the practicals. But because of CDF today, we pride ourselves because our schools are better equipped with the necessary infrastructure to aid learning. So, Madam Speaker, further, I want to attest here that the CDF has really contributed a lot to development, especially in my constituency. I represent Teso South. My constituency did not have a single college, nor did it have even a road, a tarmac road. We did the first one in 2011, from 2011. So through CDF, I was able to buy land for a teacher's training college, for the TVET. And further, I was able to partner with national government departments to be able to fund and develop these institutions. And today, I am, with the people of Teso South, are beginning to see development, improved business. People becoming landlords because they're able to put up, houses for people to rent and able to earn some income. So CDF is a very critical fund that we cannot underestimate, and we must support to ensure that it's anchored in the Constitution to continue to help and support our development agenda in this country. Madam Speaker, speaking to the other funds, like the Empowerment Fund, economic stimulus, I must say that this amendment is very timely, coming at a time when we know that jobs are scarce and our youths are languishing out there unemployed, coming at a time when the economy is on its knees, coming at a time when we desperately as a country need to create employers who can create opportunities for the young people. Madam Speaker, we have graduates. They have graduated in various disciplines. They can be able to start various SMEs, and they can become the employer of tomorrow. So we want to support this. And I must say it is very timely, and these funds, including the GAF for the women representatives, We need to empower the women. We need to capacity build them. We need to guide them before they can be able to get the empowerment funds to be able to engage in some economic activity and be able to support livelihoods. Madam Speaker, I also must touch on the issue of climate change. Given the situation in which the world finds itself in and the impacts of climate change, CDF has played a very critical role as well in terms of mitigating the impacts of climate change. I remember most of us members, we have had to put, there's an allocation that goes to environment. And we played a very critical role in terms of supporting that particular program on environment, planting trees in schools, and assigning these trees to the pupils and the students who keep on maintaining and making sure that those trees survive. So this is also a very critical component of CDF that we cannot ignore. Madam Speaker, having said that, I must say that I commend Honorable Mule and the other member who have brought this amendment to the floor of the House, and we must support. And I want to appeal to the board. The CDF Act that was nullified by the court is the Act of 2013. NGCDF Act 2015 is still active. So they should move with speed to actually gazette the boards from the various constituencies and release the funds so that we can take our sons and daughters to school. We get calls every day. My kids in various universities, they are asking, we are suffering, we have no school fees. We need to release funds so that we can be able to alleviate the situation out there. Madam Speaker, having said that, I must say I support this amendment. Thank you.
We'll go to Palungu, Honorable Victor Koech.
On this particular motion, and from the onset I want to really appreciate the two drafters of this particular amendment, the Honorable Mule and the Honorable Kidinji. Madam Speaker, I want to, from the onset, to actually support this particular initiative so that we have CDF entrenched in our constitution. CDF, as it can be seen, has really done a lot to our community. The impact that has actually brought is actually seen by all. The Honorable Speaker, I want to make the following remarks regarding the same, and to make it known that before CDF, my constituency had very pathetic institutions in terms of primary school. In fact, we had less than 40 primary schools. As we speak today, because of CDF, we have more than 180 primary schools. School still lags behind in terms of incomplete structures. And during my campaigns, Honorable Speaker, I promised my constituents that within the first year, I should have been able to complete the incomplete infrastructure within the primary school. As almost 5 incomplete classrooms. And with CDF, I was going to complete the same infrastructure before the elapsing of 1 year. Madam Speaker, the primary school that I went to, primary school called Kimaya, is in a vulnerable situation. The school actually, if every government institution was going to work, should have been closed as of now because of the structures that are deplorable, that are in deplorable condition. The Honorable Speaker, I had promised the constituents, including the primary school that I went to, that within the first 2 years, I should have given them proper structures for learning. If CDF is not going to continue to exist, Madam Speaker, we are forced, or we will be forced to go back to the days when the only way to achieve actually development was through the Arambe Clarion. Honorable Speaker, we want to speak on behalf of the vulnerable families that we are all coming from. I want, for instance, to talk about myself. because the Honorable Speaker, were it not for CDF, I don't know where I would be as at now. I'm a very true example of a product that was actually assisted by CDF, and through the ASOLs, while I was learning, I was able to actually complete my studies, and as I speak today, I'm a member of parliament, courtesy of the same. The people who actually went to court to challenge the existence of CDF should have at least given a thought on what will happen to the vulnerable families, what will happen to the needy in our society, what would have happened or what is going to happen to the orphans who may live together in our communities, whose main source of hope to educate their children and to actually get basic needs of education is through CDF. The people who went to court should have at least answered the above questions. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about the registration of the upcoming or mushrooming schools within our society. The Ministry of Education has a basic requirement before you are registered, and the following are not limited to accessibility or actually availability of 2 acres of land, having constructed actually 4 in number in terms of permanent classrooms. The Ministry of Education also requires before registration of new schools, the school should actually have two toilets, one belonging to the boys and the other belonging to the girls. Madam Speaker, it will only mean that we are not going to have new registration of mushroom schools as per the need of our constituents if CDF is not going to continue to exist. Madam Speaker, I want to really support this particular motion because we really want to see meaningful development continuing to exist within our constituency. The Honourable Speaker, as a member of Parliament, we should support the sporting talents for the various disciplines within our constituency, and namely volleyball, football, and the others. Madam Speaker, if CDF is not going to continue to exist, we don't know what will happen to our talents, and we really want to support. As it is indicated within the NGCDF, that 2% should normally go to sports. As my earlier colleagues are spoken about, also the conservation and protection of the environment, that CDF mandates us to allocate around 2%. As I finish, the Honourable Speaker, we cannot be speaking, as a government, we cannot be speaking from 2 ends. We cannot be demanding that we have 100% transition to secondary school, while at the same time, we want to deny the poor and the needy within our society the basic needs to education due to lack of school fees. The Honourable Speaker, the impact that this particular, the impact that is going to come with CDF not going to exist anymore, it will only mean that we will have no library construction in our young schools. And that will mean a drop in terms of performance in the various secondary schools that we have within our constituencies. Lack of CDF, again, will only mean, Madam Speaker, that no new laboratories are going to be constructed to our new schools. I have several requests while I was campaigning, while I was going around. I had actually several requests for construction of laboratories. This will have actually greatly impacted on improving the performance of the various schools. Lack of CDF will only mean we go back to Arambe. This is something that our government, the Kenya Kwanza government, would not want to see our country going down. Talk of the rise in dropout in number of students who are going to drop out, Madam Speaker, we would not want to see the vulnerable families not educating their children or their pupils simply because they are lacking the school fees. This is the reason why, Madam Speaker, we want to plead, to pray, and to also make sure that we have CDF properly entrenched within the Constitution so that CDF continues to exist and to continue to exist and to support which that is supporting us at the moment. Actually, denying vulnerable society the basic need of education is ungodly, Madam Speaker. And for this reason, I want to entirely make my few remarks and to support this particular legislation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. And for the benefit of the new members, Honorable Johnson Manya, when you're crossing the floor, please go to the bar and bow. Don't just cross as you have just done. The next chance will go to the Honorable Agnes Pareyo, MP Narok North. Agnes, Honorable Agnes Pareyo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. And also, before I contribute, I want to thank Honorable Muli and Keshimo for coming up with this proposal that we will see National Government Constituency Development Fund anchored into the Constitution. This is a fund that is known by everybody in Kenya. It is a fund that is not meant for the members of parliament, because we have our schools because of CDF. And this is a fund that has helped a lot in the constructions of primary school and building the laboratories, building the dormitories, the dining halls in our constituencies. If it were not for these funds, I think our children would still be going to mud classrooms. And as I speak, there are those that still go to classrooms that are not permanent. And therefore, that is why we support the National Government Constituency Development Fund to make sure that it is in place to pay school fees for our children. And at the moment, we are going through a drought, and in my constituency, most men are not at home. They are all with their animals looking for greener pastures for them. So once these children are sent home, they just come and find their mothers. And the mothers have nothing to do with their children. It means that we have most of them at home. And that's why I support this motion, to make sure that this fund has been anchored into the Constitution. And that is only when we can say these funds will be there and nobody will go again to court and nobody will interfere with it. Whether we are there or not, the funds will remain and will help people in paying school fees. I also support the increment of this fund to 5%. This is because this fund was not used to give water to our communities. And some of our communities are semi-arid and arid, and therefore they have no water. And our people take or drink contaminated water. And for them to have clean water, we must also include water in these programs so that we can give clean water to our people. This is a fund that empowers our people, because if we cannot have these funds in place, then it means that we will not have bursaries for our children. Our people are still poor. Some of the children have single parents and cannot afford to pay university school fees and also to maintain these children in school. I come from a community that still value our culture and therefore don't give a priority to girls. And when these girls drop from school, the parents will be reluctant in taking back these girls to school. And that's how we chip in as leaders to make sure that we give these girls another opportunity to try and be who they wanted to be by giving them funds to continue with their education. And that's why I support these funds to be anchored into our constitution so that we cannot be threatened by anybody else. Because if it is in the constitution, it remains there and it will forever be there. I also want to support the funds that empower women. That is NGAF and any other funds that comes to the youth and women. And this is money that empowers our women. This money that puts, this program puts money into the pockets of women. I see them doing the table banking, and when they do the table banking, they also have knowledge on how money can be used, how you can borrow money, how you can pay back the money. Therefore, it gives knowledge to our women. When we construct these classrooms, we give the local contractors tenders to make sure that we retain our money in our constituency or in our county, and it's going to deal with the eradication of poverty, because this money remains there, it circulates, it doesn't go anywhere else. So the people who benefit are the communities in those areas. And that's why I stand or I rise to support this motion to make sure that we support the proposal of having a legislative to anchor national constituency development funds in the constitution. And I just want to ask Honorable Muli and Honorable Keshimo to try and add a few members who will look into that proposal to make sure that it is done in a way that it doesn't go and then fails. To make sure that there are no loopholes, to make sure that it comes out clear and our ideas have been reflected in the proposal. Thank you, and I stand to support.
Thank you, Member for Narok North. Honorable Mule, you have a point of intervention.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. For the interest of members, Madam Speaker, I want to move a procedural motion whereby we are extending the sitting. Honorable Speaker, I give them notice of the following motion pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 30, subsection 3A. In this House resolved to extend the sitting time of the House today, Tuesday, 8th November, until 9 p.m. 2022. Madam Speaker, to the interest of the members, and I want to carry everybody on board to make sure that we walk together this journey, I want to beg to propose this motion to make sure that every member who is seated in this chamber has an opportunity to contribute today, Madam Speaker. At that juncture, I want to ask Honorable Bwire to second.
Honorable Bwire.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second that motion, and reasons being, Madam Speaker, we have members who have been sitting in the House for hours and hours and have never gotten an opportunity to contribute in the House, and especially the new members. Madam Speaker, what is debated today is a very crucial legislative proposal in view of entrenching the CDF fund in the Constitution. With those short submissions, Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Okay, members, I will put the question. I will propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 33, this House resolves to extend the sitting time of the House today, Tuesday, 8th November 2022, until 9 p.m. I put the question. Is that the mood of the House? May as many as of that opinion say aye. Are as many as a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. The next chance will go to the Honorable Member for Runyenjes, Honorable Eric Mushangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important proposal on the amendment to the Constitution of Kenya so that we can, by law, entrench the NCDF into our Constitution. Madam Speaker, I'll start by saying that there is no one in this country who can underscore the importance of this fund. It was started around 20 years ago, and it is one of the funds that has brought a lot of impact, actually, compared to other funds that exist in this country, including Uwezo funds, Youth Fund, Women Enterprise Fund. The National Government Constituencies Development Fund has brought a lot of social and economic improvement in our constituencies and in our country. And this is a fund that every person in our country should embrace. Madam Speaker, I am reminded of the many students who are at home because of the lack of school fees. For the 5 years that I have been Member of Parliament, I know of very many cases of very poor boys and girls who cannot go to school if not supported through CDF. And therefore, I would say this to our country, that there is no one who should, even by a minute, think that we should do away with the National Government Constituencies Development Fund. Looking at the value that this money has been giving to our pupils, and especially those who are orphans, those who rely on full scholarship from CDF, those who come from families that are underprivileged, those who come from families that are headed by single parents, they almost entirely depend on CDF. Madam Speaker, in the last few weeks, I have been going around my constituency, going into every sublocation, doing what I call public participation on priority projects. And I can tell you, our people are already worried about the future of CDF. And they are worried because they know the importance of it. They know what this fund has been doing in our rural areas, starting from the construction of schools. There are schools that never existed, but they exist nowadays because of CDF. Examples are everywhere in the country, including my own constituency of Runyenjes, where we have schools like Karundori Primary School that have been started through CDF. So if we put a closure to CDF, what that means is that we are going to see a decline in the establishment of new schools. Madam Speaker, we have very many facilities that have been constructed through CDF, including laboratories, including multipurpose halls, including the police stations, including police posts, offices of chiefs, offices of assistant chiefs. All this has been done courtesy of National Government Constituencies Development Fund. So if we are going to end this fund, it means our people are going to suffer immensely because of the lack of it. So instead of actually doing away with CDF, I support this proposal to double CDF, to get it from 2.5% and to get it to 5%, so that it can bring more impact, bring more value, to our people so that people can now stop relying on Harambes. Madam Speaker, before the CDF came to being, many schools used to organize Harambes. And what we have witnessed in the recent years is that there is a considerable decline in these Harambes. So whenever a school has a need, you will always find them going to the office of CDF, placing their proposals there, and when funds are made available, they get the funds and they do the facilities that they want to do. So, Madam Speaker, if we are going to do away with it, we are going to go back to the days when every other weekend, schools were holding Harambes to put up structures in their schools. Then again, Madam Speaker, in many constituencies we have had instances where toilets and other buildings have gone down and have required a kit, an emergency kit to restore the buildings. And this is where now CDF comes in handy. And I have seen in my constituency, whenever we have had emergency projects that need to be done, CDF has always come and assisted our people. Madam Speaker, CDF has a provision or an allocation for the environment. And looking at what is happening in our world today, and also looking at the issues to do with climate change, it is required of us to even double our efforts or even triple our efforts in keeping our country and our environment green. Madam Speaker, in my constituency, we have had programs to plant trees in many schools, and we have even considered planting avocado trees. And Madam Speaker, over the weekend, I took time to go to many places, and I was very happy to see some of the avocado seedlings that we donated to our schools are doing very well. We did this so that we can provide our schools with an alternative source of income. I went to a place called Gaikama Boarding Primary School, a place where we donated avocado seedlings, and I saw that they are doing very well. I went to Kiga, and I was very happy to hear responses from the school that in the very near weeks and months, they are going to have income from these avocado trees. So this CDF has really assisted our people. Then, Madam Speaker, the issue of sports, 2% of the national government constituencies fund is allocated to sports. And I can tell this House and Kenyans that this fund is never enough, because we always do sports in our constituencies, and there are many people, very many young people, talented, who want to try their hand in talents, but the fund is insufficient. So doubling it to 5% will also double the amount that is needed for the sports, and we'll be able now to consider many other games. Sometimes we find ourselves doing football for our young men and women, but with more funds coming through CDF, we shall be able to include other games that will be supported by CDF. Madam Speaker, there is a misconception in this country that CDF belongs to members of parliament. CDF, Madam Speaker, does not belong to members of parliament. It belongs to the people of Kenya. It benefits the people of Kenya. And its success stories are known from all over Kenya, including in this House. We have people who have been supported through CDF, and I am one of them, Madam Speaker. My school fees was at one time paid through CDF, and here I am, a member of parliament, serving my second term. So I am sure if we continue giving and supporting our students, we will see in the near future other people coming up with other success stories, and it is through the support that they received during their time. So with those few remarks, I support.
Next chance will go to the MP for Bobasi, Honorable Innocent Momanyi. Is in the house. If not, it will go to the member for Nandi, Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for according this opportunity to make a few comments to this legislative proposal that has been tabled on the floor of this House by the two honorable members, Honorable Gishimu and Honorable Mule. First, Honorable Speaker, I want to state that I support this particular motion, that this legislative proposal be fast-tracked for it to run into conclusion. Honorable Speaker, the four items that have been stated in this proposal are very important items for this country. Honorable Speaker, since I was in high school and in the university, of course in high school I did not need a CDF, but I was in the university, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that while this discussion was going on, I went back to my email. And in my email, Honorable Speaker, I was able to trace a CDF check that was mailed to me by the constituency office of Mgwen, that its patron was Honorable Alex Kosgei. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say thank you to him for having considered and given me bursary for me to be able to continue with my university studies. Honorable Speaker, I also remember that 3 months later, there was a serious discussion about the scrapping of CDF. And I remember, Honorable Speaker, I was a very active person in terms of writing and online. And I remember I actually vented vehemently in regards to scrapping of CDF. Of course, it was fueled by the fact that I was a recent beneficiary of the same fund. And Honorable Speaker, I remember saying so many things in regards to that CDF fund and wondering why someone would want such a fund that has been able to raise the schooling standards of the schools in this country. It was able to introduce even polytechnics that were not heard of in this country. And I was wondering, why would someone want a very good number of students that were benefiting or that depended on the CDF to go to college and to go to secondary school removed, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, I support this particular amendment or legislative proposal, Honorable Speaker, because it will be able to ensure that every beneficiary, because the beneficiaries of these funds, Honorable Speaker, are people who are truly needy. These are people who come from humble backgrounds that cannot sustain their schooling. These are people that come from humble backgrounds that cannot afford them to take their children to private schools, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I support it because when it is in the Constitution, entrenched in the Constitution, it will reduce the number of busybodies, Honorable Speaker, who want to scrap it at their own will because they do not know the importance of the same, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to also speak to the issue of NGAF. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank my predecessor. Through NGAF, Honorable Speaker, as we speak, Nandi County now has a building, a structure that is supposed to be able to accommodate people rehabilitation, to rehabilitate people who have been jailed by drugs, alcohol, people who have mental issues. That county, courtesy of NGAF, is going to have that facility, Honorable Speaker. It is a facility that is going to help many people who would have otherwise not been able to pay for those services anywhere else, Honorable Speaker. And this is not a small matter, Honorable Speaker, to the people who need it. This is also a fund that has ensured that every village, of course, I can imagine that I have seen it in many counties, patroned by the woman reps, Honorable Speaker. Many counties have tents that under other circumstances, you would not find them. And if you would find them, they would be so expensive and people would opt to do their meetings under the trees. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I support this, and I will be happy if these particular funds are able to run without undue interruptions, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, just like the Honorable Member for Kitui's Rural said, he spoke to the issue of the amounts or percentages that have been allocated. Honorable Speaker, I will not speak to that matter much because they say a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. I will not speak to it, Honorable Speaker, because it is only, it only tells us that we are going to have better terms in the future and we are going to have better amounts in the future, Honorable Speaker. And I hope, Honorable Speaker, that pending the ruling of the Speaker in regards to whether this bill will be subject to amendment during the second reading, Honorable Speaker, I hope that we can be able to increase these funds because, Honorable Speaker, this country, during the devolution, it was actually championing for decentralization. Decentralization of responsibilities of functions, Honorable Speaker, must be followed by decentralization of funds. So, Honorable Speaker, there is no harm if you give 10% to CDF for it to go to the ground because you are so sure that this is a fund that is going to benefit to the last person in the administrative unit, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, then it will have no harm when the NGAV fund is also given a 4%, Honorable Speaker. It will also be able to help the woman county representatives, Honorable Speaker, to be able to run empowerment programs because this is the same office, Honorable Speaker, that is tasked with ensuring that it is looking into the issues of the vulnerable groups, the women, Honorable Speaker, the person living with disabilities, Honorable Speaker, the youth, Honorable Speaker, and we are saying when the women of this country are educated, every other person is safe. When the youth of this country are catered for, they have jobs, they have things to do, every other person will be fine and the economy will be doing better. So, Honorable Speaker, there will be no harm in that, but that said, Honorable Speaker, we look forward to having the amounts increased so that those activities take place in the, further down the administrative unit, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I support this particular motion. And I want to say that I also support the Economic Stimulus and Empowerment Fund. Of course, Honorable Speaker, I look forward to the regulations that will be able to govern and lead these particular funds so that we have things happening in the ground. I remember, Honorable Speaker, in my county where I come from in a constituency called Tindred, there is a very nice market that was built by the Economic Stimulus Program that was run by His Excellency, the President Kibaki. In 2003, around 2003 and 4 and 5. It is working, Honorable Speaker, and you can see the importance of having had that economic stimulus program. So I'm hoping, Honorable Speaker, because every economic stimulus program, Honorable Speaker, is actually something that's supposed to elicit some sort of economic response from the private sector, hoping that this will ensure that we have more economic investment from the private sector, and that together, Honorable Speaker, with whatever government is able to do, we are going to have a better country with better revenue. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say I support, and I want to urge all the members of this Assembly, Honorable Speaker, to be able to support this, and not just support this, Honorable Speaker. This bill, especially being a constitutional amendment, is no joke. It's something that has a very high threshold, a threshold that must be met for us to be able to move forward. And, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge all the honorable members that we all take part in the process, the whole process, so that we have something that reflects on the aspirations that we have and actually protect our people on the ground that we represent, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the people that I represent, I support this because these are funds that are felt by the people on the ground directly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to speak. I would have made my maiden speech, but I already did, Honorable Speaker. So I'm almost left for words to say thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Member for Nandi. This chance will go to the member for Ganze, Honorable Charo Kazungu. If he's not in the house, the chance will go to the member of Limuru, Honorable John Kirago.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to say a few words. First, it's been 5 years since I last talked in this house, and I thank God for this opportunity and for the people of Limuru to give me a chance to come to this house and to represent them. Madam Speaker, one of the reasons I believe I have come back to this house is the way we worked with the CDF in the 11th Parliament. Madam Speaker, I found a constituency that had problems in schools. We did not have enough facilities, particularly for the boy child. And a lot was done to ensure that we help out those people who do not have a place to go to school. Madam Speaker, I remember in 4.5 years that we were able to start new secondary schools in Gatora, Kameredo, Muna, Kabuku, Umoja. All these are new schools that were created through CDF. Madam Speaker, you know in Central Province we have a big problem of alcoholism and early marriages. And when CDF is used to build new schools, for example, we take a lot of young people who otherwise would be lost because they have no facilities to move on with their education. So for me, CDF is a very, very important fund. And Madam Speaker, I want to thank the honorable members, Honorable Mule and Gishumu for helping us to focus again on these matters so that it can be anchored in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, as I stand here, I have seen young people who have benefited from CDF and who would have been lost and not even pursue higher education. And Madam Speaker, within 5 years, in Limuru particularly, I saw young people who went through CDF but were able to acquire higher qualifications in the university, and they were lucky to get scholarship to go for further studies in very prestigious universities around the world. I know, Madam Speaker, as I speak, I have people like John Mukavi, who was a young person who did not have parents to support, but through CDF, he went to Manchester University. I have Wainaina, who went to Yale University. I have Kahinga, who went to school in Korea. Sebastian, who went even for railway engineering in China. Madam Speaker, the background of these children, or these young people, were such that in fact they would not have made it if it were not for bursaries that they got through the CDF. So, Madam Speaker, I rise here to support the sentiments that have been given by various members of Parliament on the good side of CDF. And Madam Speaker, I also support the other funds that have been proposed that can also contribute to uplifting the lives of the less fortunate people in our society. Madam Speaker, as we speak, people at home are wondering, why are we referring Constitution as a problem to them getting CDF? Madam Speaker, they believe Constitution is one that helps them, not one that blocks them to access such support like the CDF. And because we know, Madam Speaker, the Act of 2015 is still active, we cannot have answers to people who are desperate, they are at home, and they are crying for help. All what I can ask is that it is important that we have funds released so that we can sort out the pressing problems with the people in our constituencies as we continue pursuing this matter of anchoring these funds into our constitution. Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. The next chance will go to the member for Turkana South, Honorable John Namoit.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to start with. I take this opportunity to thank my God, Honorable Raila Odinga, and the people of Turkana South for electing me to represent them in this August House. Madam Speaker, CDF has undergone several evolution, right from the Act of 2003 to the Act of 2015. Honorable Chair, CDF is something that the constituents of Turkana County have benefited a lot. Many students have gone to school. Personally, the member representing Turkana South is a beneficiary of CDF through payment of school fees. My academic achievement, my professional achievements was supported by CDF. And again, Madam Chair, being one of the employees of CDF, I was employed by CDF as fund account manager. I understand the operations of CDF, the workings of CDF. CDF has done a lot to the constituents of Turkana South. Madam Chair, I wish to say that national government CDF is a conveyor belt of national government development program to the lowest level of administration. This to say that a lot of national government activities are being undertaken through CDF. CDF is one of the funds that adds funds to county governments. So we need to appreciate CDF. Madam Chair, I wish to say that to facilitate the performance and implementation of national government programs, CDF has done this. The performance of government, because CDF is implementing some of the programs that are supposed to be implemented by national government. There is need for this fund to be anchored in the Constitution. In addition to that, Madam Chair, we need to reduce pressure that is being exacted to the leadership, the political leadership at the lower level of governance. And one of the funds that is targeting to reduce this pressure is CDF. CDF has supported so many hustlers of this nation. We need to understand that CDF is one of those funds that has targeted the lowest level of governance. If you look at how CDF operates through project management committees. It is these committees that undertake the procurement of the projects, and these PMCs normally gives contracts to the so many hustlers of this nation. That's why, Madam Chair, I support the amendment by my honorable colleagues. And also, Madam Chair.
It is Madam Speaker for now.
Madam Speaker, CDF, we know it has evolved. In the beginning, in the Act of 2003 to the Act of 2013, CDF allocation was based on total revenue of government. But if you look at the CDF Act 2015, it is based on what is allocated to the national government function. And that's why the busy bodies that were going around the streets of Nairobi and the courts of Kenya to ask courts to reject the implementation of CDF are taking us for granted. I want to say that the persons who want CDF to be removed are the enemies of the hustlers of this nation. Madam Speaker, CDF authorizes a number of constituencies or the neighboring constituencies to pool their resources. And pooling of these resources, Madam Speaker, will enable coexistence, harmonious coexistence of these constituents. Giving example of the county of Turkana and county of West Pokot. If the national government CDFCs come together to implement some common projects, some peace dividend projects that will enable the two communities to come together and to coexist. These projects will enable these communities to interact, to work together, to do their business together, to school together. And it is only through CDF, because the law allows the Constituency Development Fund or constituencies to work together and implement common programs. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, Engineer Kariuki, the promoter of this fund, had something in mind. And remember, Madam Speaker, again, the first devolution that has been realized in this country, the first devolution was realized through CDF. Now that CDF has done a lot, the sporting activities, the environment, we are talking about the climate change. How do we counter the climate change? We can only counter climate change through the implementation of some programs in CDF. So, Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to appreciate, recognize and appreciate the honorable members, the good honorable members that have brought this amendment before this August House to anchor CDF in the Constitution of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I support this amendment.
Thank you, member for Turkana South. This chance will now go to the member for Central Imenti, Honorable Moses Kirima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby support the motion before this August House to amend the Constitution to anchor the CDF funds to proceed in developing our rural areas, and especially the areas where the central government has been very rare in the past and even in the present. The CDF Act, as it is in the year 2013, was done away by the Honorable Court because it was really not anchored in the Constitution, or it was not tailored in a way that it could work together with in devolution. It was in one way or the other colliding. There was coalition between the central government, the county government, and the activities of the CDF, where MPs used to be the patron or used to oversight. But the CDF Act of 2015, which came up with the gap under the CDF money for purposes of developing the constituencies and supporting our honorable members of the county assembly, counties, the leaders in this chamber, was tailored in a way that it is not seen where it conflicts with county government development. But due to the existing circumstances of the judgment which has already been delivered by the Honorable Court, we are going to live on a shaking ground unless the act or the CDF is entrenched in the Constitution. So this amendment is necessary. If you go back a little bit, during our early times, Madam Speaker, like in the where I come from, the constituency where I come from, Central Imenti, I cannot remember to have seen any development from the central government of any nature throughout my life, other than one office called the DCC office, which is just a one-story building. all other developments in the area, infrastructure of any nature, both school and administrative, and the security infrastructure, they have come up with the CNDF. So this is a vital fund. It's a very necessary fund to develop the rural areas. And you see, when this money is entrenched, when these CNDF funds are entrenched in the Constitution, in spite of if you are in the opposition or if you are in the government of the day, nobody will come to intimidate you. Nobody will come to dictate of how you should carry out your activities, because you will be left free. The constituencies will be left free to develop through the CNDF bonds without interference or without being manipulated by the system, as it used to happen between 2017 and 2022, where we are the ones who are not really towing the line of the existing system, which had just passed, were really left to suffer. And our constituencies were left behind because development was tailored towards the direction of those people who are pro-system. So, but if it was just CNDF, as we are trying to put it in the Constitution now through the amendments, which is before this House, things could have been better, because we should come up with a way in a manner that even the CNDF board will not be influenced by the executive of who is to get these funds before who, without interference. For sometimes you find that there are members who get their funds, their constituencies which get their funds faster than others, others get complete, others are left with pending deliverance of development money. So we should come out in a way that there will be neutrality when it comes to dispersing of the funds, and there should be non-discrimination of in nature. So CNDF is very necessary, taking into account that most of the rural areas, people are struggling about they can earn a living, or even of how they can take their children to school. We have what we call day schools, which came up during the Kibaki time, when Honorable Muriuki Karue came up with this CNDF bill, which was supported by the House at that material time. But, Madam Speaker, as it is, without this CNDF money, the government stated clearly that it's going to sponsor day schools fully, and the students are supposed to enjoy their education and just go back without paying a penny. But, Madam Speaker, it's difficult because the teachers are left to the children who have nothing to eat, and they are forced in one or the other to devise a way of how they can come up with what the children are supposed to have as lunch, and also to sustain them in the same schools, because there is no other method of keeping those students in school. Madam Speaker, it's through the CNDF that the CNDF board devise a way of how they can at least devise a method of sustaining or supporting those projects to sustain those schools, those day students, day secondary school students in school, by giving them little money of about 2,000 or 3,000 to sustain them in school. And as it has delayed now, like when we are undergoing this problem of drought, that's why we are having hue and cry now, or in many areas, whereby students are not, schools are closed, day schools are closed, for they have no way of how to sustain the students in school, for there is no CNDF. It's my humble prayer that all the members in this House will support this motion, and when it's supported, there will be no omutatas and others busy bodies somewhere who will come up and I don't know what my colleague Honorable Mule is telling me the way they are called, but I'm not used to that in ghetto language. And but to me, I'm praying that there will not be having those kind of people who just rush to court for the sake of rushing to please their masters abroad. Because they have a way of how they try to get money by taking the government to court or the National Assembly to court, so that at least they can get some sponsors from nomadic countries which really supporting peace and bodies in that round countries, to make sure that whatever development we try to put in through legislation is stopped by the court. And you know, also our court and judiciary is full of activism. So this can take place. That's why I'm saying I hope after we have this amendment, there will be no that kind of activities to either what this National Assembly has taken a lot of time to debate upon and have the amendment to entrench the development of CDF in the Constitution. My idea, of which I would like to wish to put across this Honorable House, is that CDF is a necessity as it is in Kenya. There is no conflict between CDF and in devolution money in the county government. Only that we should have, as it is in the 2015 Act, after the division of revenue, whereby the county government get their money, and now what is left to the national government should be now be part of where the CDF should get their portion. I therefore support this motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Karema. This next chance will go to the member for Nakuru, Honorable Liza Chelule.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute and to add my voice to this very wonderful motion that was brought to the floor of this House by Honorable Mule. It is speaking to important things. It is speaking to important amendment that is strongly related to the people of this country. Madam Speaker, we are all in this House through representation. We are here because of representation. And you cannot talk about representation, Madam Speaker, without development. And the only funds that has actually done a lot of development at the community level is CDF. Madam Speaker, you remember 10 years ago, we were speaking about devolution. And devolution is about services and resources taken near to the people of the community. Madam Speaker, the work that CDF has done at the community level is speaking for itself where we are coming from. Madam Speaker, as we speak about the devolved funds, there are so many types of devolved funds in our government. And one is CDF. Second one is about the NG or GAF money that is managed by women reps, me being one of them. Madam Speaker, we have WESO fund that is managed by the MP in every sub-county. We have Youth and Women Enterprise Fund, Madam Speaker. And these different types of funds in our country is operated differently. For example, CDF is not money that is supposed to be used and returned back to the government. GAV is a grant to the women and the youth and the people with disability of this country. This is money that is taken to the community for the purpose of development. And you cannot say today you are sitting in this House representing particular constituency, representing particular county without taking money near to the people. So I can imagine how GAV have really assisted women groups in our counties. I know women representatives who are still sitting in this House can attest to that. I know how it has really assisted many vulnerable students from extreme poor families. Madam Speaker, I remember when we were doing our last term, Madam Speaker, I remember about around 50 students, those that were supported through my office. And these students, we were paying them from Form 1 to Form 4. And my happiness today, as I report to this House, is that these students excel and they are all going to university to proceed with their studies. And I'm asking myself, for whoever is really planning to do away with this fund, and then he should actually go back to his or her books. The devolved funds is very meaningful, We cannot speak that we are going or we are coming to the National Assembly to represent the people of this country if we are not doing any development. And there is no development that is going to be done, especially by the sub-county members of parliament, without CDF. You can remember, Madam Speaker, what CDF has really done in your sub-county. Madam Speaker, I am sure you are one of those students who benefited from CDF. That if it was not for CDF, Madam Speaker, you would not be sitting where you are as our speaker today. So for whoever is actually planning to do away with this money, we are here today to say we need the same funds to be anchored in our constitution. Madam Speaker, I do remember very well that in our regulations, the management regulations of the GAF money, or the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, there is a section that says there should be a county-wide project. And in Nakuru, we picked a county-wide project as buying tanks to those schools, especially those vulnerable schools in our county. And you know, these big tanks, the 10,000 tanks that we bought to some schools, has really, really assisted, especially during Corona. Madam Speaker, we are supporting these devolved funds, because if there is nothing that you will take to your people, then there is nothing, there is no reason. You will never have a reason as a member of parliament as to why you should come to this house to represent them. Madam Speaker, I'm in support of these regulations to be entrenched in the constitution, so that this fund will all the time be protected, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to support all the members who actually requested that this CDF money still is not enough, and they need the money to be raised from 2.5% to 5%. While as the women reps, we are requesting to be given 30% of the CDF. When I say this, Mr. Speaker, for example, if a particular sub-county is getting 140 million per every financial year, and then the women, so the GAF money should actually should have 30% of that 140 money to be able to cover all the women projects in their counties. Mr. Speaker, people have been confused sometimes. We are sitting in the same house, Mr. Speaker, as members of this house. But you know, the area coverage of women reps is so big compared to the sub-counties. While we are not complaining about that, but we also need to be considered for an additional money, for the GAF money, for us to be able, as women reps, to cover the county. Because, for example, Nakuru County, we have 11 sub-counties. And the area coverage of Nakuru is so vast. Mr. Speaker, we are also requesting as women reps that this money should actually be added. We should be given more money. Right now, as I'm speaking, we are being given only 7 million. 7 million compared to a sub-county which is being given 140 million. We are only given 7 million in every sub-county. We would also want to have the 50%, so that if a sub-county is receiving 140 million, we are supposed to be receiving 70 million by every sub-county. Mr. Speaker, this money belongs to the people of this county, and this money will make the people of this country to pay for their taxes. They will be empowered to grow the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, Uwezo Fund is money that is called revolving fund. It is money that should actually be going round. It is money that is supposed to be given to a group, a registered group, and then after some time, after they return back, another group also will continue to benefit. So, and that is the reason why it is called revolving fund. The same thing to Youth Enterprise Fund and Women Enterprise Fund. These are money that are supposed to be taken by women groups that have been registered, and this money is supposed to be returned back to the government for other communities, for other groups also to benefit from the same group. So there are different types of funds to the community. Mr. Speaker, we need to also have a program of civic education to educate the people of this country about these 3 funds or 3 types of funds or many types. Anything community or any money going to the community, I mean, nobody should oppose to it. So, in this matter or in this reason, I'm supporting all the devolved funds to be protected by the Constitution. I am requesting that all the devolved funds to be anchored in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it is so painful when you hear, maybe even whoever is planning, whoever is choosing to say, okay, we should do away with CDF, is somebody who actually benefited through CDF in his education or higher education. It is very bad, and to be very bad, Mr. Speaker, you know, we are under CPC, and very soon the CPC students will be sitting for their examinations. And these students are supposed to go to school. It is very, very bad if someone is choosing to say we do away with CDF. You know, CDF have been assisting students. The gov money has been assisting students from extreme vulnerable families to go to school. It is not good to have our children at home just because there is no. In fact, the issue of schools, of school fees in this country should actually be taken 100% by the government. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy because of the two members of parliament, Mr. Honorable Mule and Kishimo, who actually brought these amendments to this house. Me, I fully support on behalf of the people of Nakuru County. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this space to speak my voice.
Some great contributions there. I hope the proponents of this constitutional amendment are taking notes. I can't see them in the house. Are they there? They have run away. Yeah. Honorable Katambi Chepkwony.
This one is very short. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for granting me this opportunity for me to contribute to this motion introduced by Honorable Muli in relation with the CDF. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me start first by saying whoever is against CDF is the enemy of development in this country. Whoever is against CDF is an enemy of the poor children whom we take to school, to different colleges, universities, secondary schools, and whoever is against CDF in this country is the kind of a person who is not even appreciating the great work members of parliament who stand in single constituencies have done in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, being a member of constituency which is called the Joro Nakuru County, I want to confirm that CDF has changed lives of people. As I stand here today, I have constructed over 100 projects in my constituency with the CDF. I have bought the first term of 7 buses to support education, the schools, and the communities, even when they are going for graduations. As I stand here, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me confirm that the orphans in my constituency who don't have a father or mother, they can have an office where they can rush and get some bursary for their education. I still want to confirm as I'm standing here that through the CDF, it has given me opportunity to introduce even short courses so that even the pick riders can go for courses, get fully equipped, and they get licenses so that they can have a proper requirements as the government requires from them. It is through the same CDF which has helped me to come up with other different courses to accommodate poor youths from poor backgrounds in relation probably with clothing and textiles. I've taken to others in matters of electricity, learning. I've also taken some others issues of catering services. We have introduced even some talented youths who have done saloon, vineyards, etc. through CDF, Mr. Speaker, sir, where I'm standing to say that whoever is against CDF in this country is the enemy of this country and the enemy of development. It is because the same CDF enabled me to contribute amount of money with a collaboration with the government to construct a technical institute worth 60 million. Why was I doing that, Mr. Speaker, sir? It is because in our country we have challenge of unemployment of our youths. And if we can contract TTIs, TVETs, where we can give a place for our youths to get empowerment skills, then to some extent, we are really empowering our jobless youths. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the same CDF has given us an opportunity to support our officers, our police officers in construction of their offices, and previously, before the previous dictatorship against our officers to get houses for their residential areas. We used to support that. Mr. Speaker, sir, let it also be noted that it is through CDF we have managed to construct even offices for our assistant chiefs and the chiefs and even DCCs so that we can give them a good environment which can enable them to do their daily work. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I still want to support that why CDF must be supported no matter the cost. Right now, there is a global voice that climate change is real. It is affecting all of us. Through CDF, once again, it has given us another issue of environment. Therefore, through my CDF and through environment, being part of CDF, we managed to buy tanks for some schools because there's water scarcity in this country. And therefore, water being a big problem even to institutions and to the communities, the same CDF has given us an opportunity to make sure we get tanks to provide water for our children and also communities. It is the same environment which has given us another facility of even purchasing trees and the campaigning for planting of trees. And it is on that point, Mr. Speaker, sir, the role members of parliament are playing through CDF in their single constituencies is so much that it cannot be ignored. Whoever can ignore the role of CDF probably might use a bad word. That might be a foolish person. Because with all the issues I'm mentioning here today, Mr. Speaker, sir, if there can be a woman or a man in this country who can be beating, who can be against the CDF which has saved lives of the hopeless single mothers who cannot have somewhere to rush, they can rush to the CDF offices and get bursaries for their children. Then whoever, again, Mr. Speaker, is against CDF has no plan, has no dream for our future and for our generations. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is my humble request to the entire parliament that we support, no matter the cost, whichever action it might take. Let us do the best to make sure that it is fully put, that it can never no longer be shaken by the enemies of the development of this country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stood here to support Honorable Muli with his colleague who came up with this idea that we must make sure that the CDF is fully anchored in the law so that we can, all of us, continue benefiting and making our constituencies and our country a more better for all of us. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you for those passionate contributions. I hope the nation watched and listened, Honorable Katambi. Is Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi in the house? I remember I gave him a chance to speak the last time I sat here. I don't know whether there is a way you can remove such, requests from the list. Honorable John Buddy. Had Honorable John Buddy spoken to? We're just waiting to and leave them. Honorable Innocent Mumanyi. Honorable Charo Kazungu, MP for Ganze. Not in the House. Let us have Honorable Amina Mnyazi, MP for Malindi.
Mwanzo ningependa kuchukua fursa hii kukushukuru Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kupata fursa hii kuweza kutoa sauti yangu na kujadili katika mjadala ambao uko mbele ya nyumba hii ya leo, na ningependa pia kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Muli kwa kuweza kuleta mjadala huu katika hii nyumba, kwa sababu ni jambo lenye ambalo limeweza kushika Kenya nzima. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi mwanzo nashangaa sana na wale watu wenye ambao wanapinga.
Order member, I'll give you a minute. Honorable Gachobe, could you be leaving? Yeah, I just wanted to notify if you're leaving because you've waited for far too long. You're very close to speaking. Yeah, you may continue. Award an additional minute.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Spika, nilikuwa natangulia kusema ya kwamba mimi nashangazwa sana na wale watu wenye ambao wanapinga masuala ya CDF. Kama kuna Mkenya yoyote ambaye anapinga masuala ya CDF, wanapinga kwa misingi gani? Na ni suluhisho gani lenye ambalo wao wako nalo saizi ili kuhakikisha wanafunzi milioni 1 kila mwaka wameweza kusaidika katika mashule yao tofauti tofauti? Nashangazwa na hawa watu kivipi hawaoni maendeleo ya madarasa zaidi ya 21,000 yenye ambayo yameweza kujengwa kupitia NGCDF. Hao watu mimi wananishangaza, na mimi ombi langu kwa wabunge wenzangu ni kwamba hizo ni kelele za chura, zisituzuilie sisi kunywa maji. Sisi ni lazima tufanyie wananchi wetu kazi, na kufanyia wananchi wetu kazi ni lazima masuala ya CDF, masuala ya ngaf tuipitishe na tuiweke katika katiba ili kuhakikisha kwamba matatizo madogo madogo kama haya hayawezi kutupumba huko mbele katika maisha yetu. Jambo la kwanza ningependa kusisitiza ni majengo bora, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kama vile ambavyo mnaona Kenya yetu saizi sisi imebadilika. Zile enzi za kuwa watoto, zile enzi za kuwa wanafunzi wanaketi chini, wanasomeshwa chini ya miti, hayo yote yameweza kusaidika na yameweza kuondolewa kwa kupitiwa huu mfuko wa CDF wenye ambao wabunge wako nayo. So mimi naunga huu mjadala mkono kwa sababu najua kuna mambo makubwa yenye ambao yametendeka katika eneo bunge langu la Malindi, na si shule peke yake. Kuna masoko, kina mama wenye ambao wanatoka katika manyumba yao, wamebeba mizigo yao, wamebeba biashara zao. Leo hii wako chini ya kiangazi, leo hii wako chini ya manyumba kwa sababu ya CDF. Sasa sisi, hii serikali ambao iko leo wanasema ni serikali ya Hustler Nation, na mahasla ni kama hao kina mama mboga wenye ambao wako pale chini. Tukiweza kuondoa NGCDF, hao wamama majengo yao yatajengwa na kina nani? Jambo la pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, napenda kuliweka wazi ya kwamba sisi wa Kenya ni wazalendo, na ni wakati sisi kama wa Kenya, ni wakati sisi kama viongozi tufanye jihada na jitihada na mambo yenye ambayo itafanya sasa sisi tupende pia wale wa Kenya wa chini kabisa. Wakenya kwa dakika hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanahitaji huduma bora na wanahitaji huduma za haraka. Na NGCDF imeweza, na tunaona kwa mifano mingi ambayo wenzangu tayari wameshatangulia kuyazungumzia kwamba through CDF huduma bora na huduma za haraka zinaweza zikawafikia wananchi. Mfano ni huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama kuna matatizo yoyote katika eneo bunge la mbunge yoyote, ni mbunge ndo ni mtu wa kwanza mwenye ambaye anatatua yale matatizo yenye ambayo yako pale. Leo hii tukisema tunaondoa NGCDF na tunaleta haya maendeleo yote hapa katika national government, unafikiria ile shule yenye ambayo inakwenda kuboromoka kitambo hata yule mbunge zile pesa ziweze kumfikia, ile miaka yake ya miaka 5 itakuwa imeshamalizika. So through the CDF tunakuwa na huduma bora na huduma za haraka. Mheshimiwa Spika, pasipo kusahau zile kazi zenye ambazo watu wameweza kuajiriwa through NGCDF. Saizi watu tuko na matatizo katika Kenya hii. Kuna watu wengi ambao hawana ajira. Masuala ya ajira yamekuwa ni donda sugu kabisa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mbali na ile ofisi ya CDF yenye ambayo iko hapa ndani ya Nairobi, wale wameweza kuajiri watu. Tukisema tunaondoa CDF, wale ndugu zetu tunataka waishi vipi? Hata pia mbali na hao, katika kila eneo bunge kuna wafanyikazi ambao wameandikwa courtesy of NGCDF. Hilo jambo nalo likiweza kuondolewa, hawa ndugu zetu sisi tunawaelekeza vipi katika maisha yao? Na ndio maana sisi tunasema kwa niaba